Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar to celebrate an important day, which is the International Day for Celebrating Women and Girls Who Work in Science. Before I get any further in terms of what we're going to do on this webinar, let me start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I take this opportunity to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is going to feature two fantastic women who have found financial independence through their careers in science, and they have such interesting stories to tell. So without much further ado, I hand over to Anna to introduce our panelists to you today.
Thanks so much, Vinita. And like you mentioned, I'm looking forward to discussing quite a different topic to others that we've covered, where with a focus on STEM careers. And if we think about the opportunities for fulfilling careers and how this helps women build financial independence, I think there's a lot of interesting content that we'll be covering today. So with us on our panel today is Dr. Ekta Sharma and Dr. Farwa Rizvi, who will be talking about their journey in the STEM sector with particular focuses on their areas of specialty. Ekta, I might start with you if that's okay, to introduce yourself to our audience who perhaps haven't met you before.
Thank you very much, Vinita and Anna, for the invitation. And this presents a valuable opportunity for the United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And it's a special pleasure and a delight to virtually meet Farwa as well. So I'm an early career academic and a senior lecturer at a University of Southern Queensland. So my primary research focus is on applying artificial intelligence to address societal challenges. So the projects I work on are related to air quality, climate risk, and the impact of space weather on satellites. In fact, I integrate both mathematics and AI to enhance prediction and decision making. This helps in deliver the tangible benefits to communities. My solutions are evidence-based, scalable, and ethically grounded while continually learning and adapting. And alongside this, I actively support diversity in STEM and have previously served as a STEM outreach mentor across Australia, India, and Europe. And I've co-authored 8 books, which I will discuss at some point later. And finally, I'm grateful to be on this platform and hope it helps increase the visibility for women pursuing career in STEM.
Fantastic. It's already a great start, and there's so many things that I want to talk about based on your introduction, but we'll get to it with our questions. And for you, Farwa?
Thanks, Anna. It's a pleasure to meet you and Vinita and Ekta, and really happy to be on board for such a beautiful podcast recording. It's a really important segment. So I am a medical doctor by background. I've been working as a general practitioner, and then I went ahead and did my postgrad, my master's in public health, and my PhD in public health. And I've been working as a postdoc, early to mid-career researcher for the past almost 4.5 or 5 years. My work spans across working at the Department of Medicine at St. Vincent's Hospital and the University of Melbourne. And last year at Monash Centre as well, at the Macquarie Centre. And then and then at the Deakin University for the postdoctoral fellowship. I work around the palliative care integration with advanced tumor streams across different multiple tumor streams while I was working as a postdoc, and also with the primary focus on breast cancer screening. And being a GP by background, my heart has always been in the primary practice, so I focus on the cancer screening in primary practice, and with the focus on the breast cancer, cervical cancer, colorectal, and lung cancer screening. I do believe in with a focus on the culturally diverse populations, the patients as consumers. And I do agree with Ekta. My work does reflect that. I do work with a lot of culturally diverse communities within Victoria, Australia, and work alongside the clinicians and the policymakers.
Fantastic. And it sounds like there's all four of us are very passionate about research and evidence-based solutions and understanding, the details of why things are happening. And both of you, I think, have such fascinating careers that I'm keen to get into some more detail about. And I think to start us off, it would be great to understand what drew you to a career in STEM. So Farwa, while you have the mic, if we continue on, your explanations here. What drew you to this sort of health and then medicine and research career?
Sure. Thanks, Anna. Um, I chose medicine and then the postdoc research, the clinical research, because I've always felt like it just sits at the intersection of evidence-based medicine, the clinical research, and the consumers, and making the ability to have a real-world impact. I've always been drawn towards that. Even as a clinician, I always wanted to look at the big changes that can make a difference. My journey has evolved, obviously, from my clinical training as a medical doctor and as a GP onwards to be a PhD researcher and then a postdoc. I currently work, as I said before, in cancer screening in primary practice, and I'm continuously trying to merge together my clinical expertise as a doctor with the postdoc research. And I feel like it's a really good field because there's potential to have an evolution of, the merging of the clinical sciences and the research for patients. And it's always been a focus on that. I'll
Fantastic.
leave the mic for Ekta.
Yes.
Thanks, Verva. For me, a career in STEM is not just an academic pursuit, but I've always thought of it as applying structured thinking to problems that matter to me. And I believe for me, it sits at the intersection of creativity, problem solving, and real world relevance. And in my case, artificial intelligence and maths are where that intersection is most alive. So I was drawn particularly to maths and then AI because of the blend of clarity and impact. So my academic career began in India as a mathematician, where maths gave me a way to understand how abstract concepts can explain real life complex patterns with the accuracy and logic. And this was the time I developed a strong commitment to mathematical integrity and teaching excellence. Thereafter, my move to Zurich and quite a few years of living there significantly expanded my academic perspective. So, working at the Zurich Hochschule or Zurich University of Applied Sciences, I transitioned into a more applied and industry engaged research environment. So, this period strengthened my ability to focus on real world problem solving, conduct collaborative, cross-disciplinary research, and communicate complex ideas in fact, quantitative ideas to non-specialist stakeholders. There were abrupt but long career breaks in between. And as I progressed, this foundation naturally led me to a doctorate in artificial intelligence in Australia, turning theory into action, models that learn, models that adapt, addressing the practical challenges. And they helped me make better, optimal decisions at scale across several government projects. And I'm actually very fascinated by the evolution of AI for some years. And it's everywhere. And having a doctorate in this area, I often say that I've topped up my natural intelligence with an artificial one now. So I can say that my professional development has evolved from a discipline specific academic to a leadership in application driven research with a commitment to a meaningful impact. Yeah.
I imagine both of your careers have to rapidly adapt, when your new research emerges, particularly AI, but also with medicine, there's new developments, new findings, and I'm sure you're both very good at, adapting to new findings and research, and especially with technology, there's so much happening so quickly. So I'm sure that's you can never be finished with learning. There's always more to learn and teach and use with all this evidence that you're kind of learning over time as well. But it'll be good to know in a bit more detail what each of your work involves, including who your stakeholders are and how you go about your work. Ekta, maybe continue with you.
Sure, thanks, Anna. So, I'm an early career academic, and my role requires to blend research, teaching and service. So I teach across postgraduate and undergraduate programs, which I find deeply rewarding. But research is where I'm most at home. And as I said, my works involve focuses on developing AI-driven early warning and decision support systems. And the work is aligned with the national priorities, the Australian priorities in the strategic areas of environmental resilience as well as the space capability. So, in simpler terms, I target complex environmental data, complex space data, and translate that into actionable insights for government and operational stakeholders. So this helps in anticipating the risk for everyone and support more resilient systems. So if I talk about my stakeholders, they span higher education, government, specifically defense and intelligence agencies, several industry partners, and of course, international collaborators, including Singapore, Switzerland, Japan, Korea, US, and more recently, India. So, um, the nature of my work is that the key beneficiaries include communities, any community that is impacted by air quality and climate related risks, as well as early career researchers such as myself and students which are engaged through teaching and mentoring. For me to work, I have to secure competitive funding so that I can support the translation from research to application. And I have to embed capacity building as well through the years with mentoring, with teaching, and external and internal outreach. And alongside this, I have always made a point to undertake STEM work through all these interdisciplinary collaborations because I want to align my technical innovation with the real world needs. So, as a part of this, I have co authored books which support women in disadvantaged communities through the She Writers Group in Switzerland, including Dr. Vinita here. And I have been doing this for 8 years now. And our next book will be released globally on the International Women's Day this year. So these books and stories highlight women's perspective, their choices, their challenges, their celebrations. So together, this ensures that my efforts are not just limited to the technical area of AI, but they are also socially responsible while building a diverse, future ready STEM workforce. I guess over to Farwa now.
Thanks, Ekta. Before I go for the serious stuff, I just wanted to say that you work in AI, and I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I love the role of AI in my sci-fi sort of things, so much so that I actually started a project with my siblings, my other three siblings, 2 years ago. We've all started writing sci-fi short stories and sort of like a collaboration. Hopefully we'll see it through with the publication this year, but that's how much I love the sci-fi books and everything. And my early love started with the Isaac Asimov's novels, I, Robot and Foundation, which is now made into a very beautiful series. But that's the nerd in me talking, so I'm just gonna come back to the actual work. So, Anna and Benita, I work in the clinical research, and for any postdoc, it's always important to have the ability to work on a mixed methods research. So, do employ a lot of the quantitative as well as qualitative research and quick adaptation, like you said. My work has been mostly around the palliative care integration with the advanced cancer streams. And we were looking at data and patients' data coming in at St. Vincent's Hospital, Peter Mac, and Royal Melbourne Hospital, with a focus on the Australian patients, including the Australian patients and the culturally diverse patients from these communities as well. I do work towards the health equity, and whether that's cancer screening or that's the accessibility to particular cancer screening, especially for the women. It's always been a focus for women for their accessibility for breast cancer screening. Till now, the women from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds in Victoria and in Australia, they're not at par with accessing the cancer screening services, especially around the mammography. That's the breast screening. The official parameters are somewhere around 35% or even less than that. That includes women from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders populations as well as the CALD nations. So there's definitely room for improvement for that. Um, I do work a lot with the patient populations, the consumer stakeholders, the organizational stakeholders. Those organizations in the past and the current collaborations include the philanthropic organizations such as Shepherd Foundation Victoria, Urban Cancer Council Victoria, Breast Screen Victoria, PC4, that's another foundation, an organization for cancer screening in primary practice. So over the past few years, I've carefully cultivated these really beautiful relationships and collaborations with these organizations, which make an impact in the policy and with the cultural organizations as well for the consumers in Victoria. And then being a clinician, I found it very natural to bridge that gap and work with the clinicians, the general practitioners. My own classmates and my friends have been working in Victoria and in New South Wales. So it was always a natural pathway for me to include the general practitioners and the non-primary specialist doctors within my research work. They've always been a part of my I would say, projects or as a part of a project advisory group or just colleagues, working together. I usually work more with the oncologists and surgeons and radiologists and radiographers, again, with a particular focus on breast screening. Um, my work has been translated in 79 peer-reviewed publications at the moment. Just got my final 79th publication a few weeks ago. So I've worked for updating the Australian National Guidelines for Cancer Pain Management for adult patients. And with another team in New South Wales, we're working for the cancer pain management for pediatric patients. This work has been a culmination of a lot of expert advisory groups and a lot of toing and froing with all the other clinicians, the pain specialists and oncologists and interventional radiologists. I learned a lot during that process because it's not just the guidelines, it's all of those um, aspects of including the consumer's viewpoints. Last year, I was a part of the team for assessing the clinical guidelines for PCOS, the polycystic ovarian syndrome, and the premature ovarian syndrome, and early menopause, which are all metabolic disorders. And I've got a passion to work around those areas. And I realized that it was sort of like a conglomeration of talking to the clinicians, the researchers, and the patients together. You got to have the patient's consumer's voice in there. So it's always been around that, but I'm very happy to be a part of the various toolkits for palliative care integration that we actually issued from St. Vincent's Hospital 2 years ago with my professor and the team. And it's just been that sort of work that progressing forwards with a focus on the Australian patients with all the other communities and the CAL communities as well, and sort of having a prototype for cancer screening accessibility, or at the moment that I'm working for designing a specific breast health resource for women from Pakistan and India, the South Asian women, and we hope to extend it further to other culturally and linguistically diverse communities in Australia because there's a gap that needs to be filled in. And it's not just about women being educated, it's about linking them to the right information with Breast Screen Victoria and Breast Screen Australia. I've come across patients who are highly educated and they just didn't know whom to contact or how to go about it. Women in the 40s and 50s, women with high risk. So it's all of that thing, just linking them together and working on resource. My current work as a part of my postdoc fellowship now will be focusing on a co-design where I will be including the organizational stakeholders, Breast Screen Victoria as well, their representatives and the women, and having their voice in how would they like to have a look at a resource, literally from the information in there to the resource, the content, the layout, everything. And I'm really looking forward to having something later this year.
Well, so many amazing achievements there, and both of you with, published works and collaborations and such a range of stakeholders as well. Farwa, I like that point that you made about not just providing education, but making sure people have access to the right information and can take that action. Because, when we think about financial wellness, there's a lot of conversation about financial literacy, but financial literacy isn't always enough if people don't have the ability to build capability and, have that resilience. So I think there's a really nice tie in there with, something that really spans across areas with, it's not enough to just have the information available or provide education, but empowering people to know what to do next, to then actually, do the screening or whatever it might be. It's a really powerful point. And it'll be good to know, as a kind of our next question, around what do you think has worked well in encouraging women and girls into STEM-related careers? You've both built successful careers in this space, but do you think there's anything that's worked particularly well or any improvements that are necessary?
Do you want to go first, Ekta?
That's okay. Happy to take the question if you're okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
First of all, continuing from what Farwa said in the last question, I'll be happy to collaborate with you on the AI project that you were mentioning at the beginning of the question. Now, coming to the question of what worked well in encouraging women and girls into STEM related. So I believe interventions need to happen much earlier on. Can be through schools, can be through outreach programs, internal outreach, external outreach. And I have seen personally students, particularly women, greatly improve in maths through, encouragement and mentorship from passionate and well-versed mentors, those who really believe in their students and encourage them. And if this is coupled with visible role models, then it helps to foster confidence in young minds like anything. And they can challenge the stereotypes while pursuing their careers. I'll take the recent example of Catherine Benell-Pegg, the Australian of the Year. Her passionate advocacy for science and technology and her overall impact on space, on the young minds over the past few years has been phenomenal. However, there have to be consistent interventions, and these interventions need to be across multiple channels. Only then, I believe, they can prove most effective for encouraging women, girls, and anybody actually to pursue careers in STEM. And another important pillar, in addition to mentoring, is and visibility, is sponsorship. Both of which, in my opinion, offer practical guidance. They offer networking opportunities, and they provide a sense of belonging to a person. And I have seen improved participation and retention of the workforce when women are provided with flexible and hybrid career pathways. They are provided with targeted scholarships. They are provided with dedicated early career funding. And importantly, it resonates well when young minds see STEM being meaningfully connected to a social purpose through the right programs. Then it should have a greater real world impact, such as climate resilience, health, or sustainability. And I'm seeing all this from my own personal experiences. For me, the interdisciplinary projects, the collaborations, both domestic and international, they have always created further pathways. When I travel, it helps me expand my horizons. And even when I returned to the workforce, as I mentioned, I had a career break. It was quite challenging. So the funded grants proved quite helpful in getting a foot in the door, and by allowing anybody to assess a long-term track record rather than just last few years when applying for jobs. Um, However, ongoing funding for these outreach programs rather than one-off funding or one-off initiatives is also important. It helps if you are continuing the funding over the next few years. And then finally, I think it would be helpful to measure the success not just by the participation rate of the person, but also by indicators such as career progression, the workplace culture, and long term impact. So, taking a systems level approach, I guess, integrating all these equities into policies, different funding models that can suit different people according to their circumstances, and the institutional practices. I believe all the collaboration of all these parameters can be a key to achieving meaningful and lasting change. Over to you, Farwana.
Thank you, Ekta. You said it very nicely, actually, and echoed my sentiments as well. So, Anna, your question was what has worked well? I'd like to divide it into facilitators and barriers. Let's talk about the things that have worked well as facilitators. And what Ekta said, I do echo that as well, is that you need to have those structural changes from the school level. And that would mean having good role models, having good women role models, because we're talking about the girls and the women in the industry, and also the good mentoring and flexible pathways for women who are in the STEM careers or in research, be they from the medical backgrounds or from AI or engineering. Flexible pathways have always worked well in hybrid work environments. And I'll go into that further why I say the hybrid work environments. Not just because we got lucky after the COVID pandemic that we learned very quickly to work in a hybrid environment, online and in person. And I think a lot of people might agree with me that it's always been a really good idea to work, to have the flexibility to work in on site as well as in the online environment. The other thing that I feel is important is the accessibility to funding that Ekta, you've also mentioned before. I feel like it's such a competitive world, and anyone who's a postdoc would know that because you're constantly trying to compete with your colleagues and peers and try to have that funding for your project so you could have a voice. And I consider myself really fortunate that I was able to have a postdoc fellowship. But then again, it's sort of like an ongoing journey, and I wish there was more funding available, not just the availability of 2 or 3 fellowships per year in a particular segment. Let's say for me, it'll be cancer screening or, that sort of stuff. For Ekta, it'll be AI. But the sort of like, multiple funding opportunities and multiple fellowships where you have sort of like a little bit of breathing space. I feel like for a lot of the women researchers, it's a pretty much of a full-on work, trying to find the right funding for everything. Um, so I do believe that good mentoring works from the beginning. And there was a time when I started mentoring. I've been working as an associate supervisor for a few of the medical doctors back at St. Vincent Hospital, one of the gynecologists that I mentored for their palliative care projects. And I slowly started to realize that it's not just the postdocs, the doctors or the PhD candidates that I have to mentor. I have to go a little bit down for the junior people. So I think since last year, it has been a very sort of active decision on my part and more of a passion project for me really is that I've started mentoring a little bit for the medical students, the ones who are in the third year and fourth year, because even if they're going on to become GPs, we need people who have a good sort of understanding of the medical research and the actual impact of an evidence-based medicine. It's absolutely imperative. And then I started reaching down to the year 11 and year 12 students, especially the girl students. It started as a passion project for a lot of the children of my colleagues, who are in their year 11 and 12. If they've shown an interest in research and they wanted to be mentored, and thought, you know what, why not? It's sort of like a long-term plan. And you talk about the financial independence long-term. I do believe this is absolutely important in the girls to have that sort of awareness that they can make an impact and have their say, no matter what pathway they're choosing. It doesn't matter. Just the ability to understand the basics of research would also alert them to other financial independence as well. Like I've always believed that. And I think the fact that as postdocs, we're always trying to look for fundings and fellowships and grants to have a say, it's also a form of striving for more financial independence. I think it goes hand in hand. You have more financial independence, more funding. You can make an impact if you're passionate about, your project. The things that I feel are working as barriers, I would put them all together under the umbrella of a structural barrier. I feel like there are still those inherent gender biases that women face even as young students up to the point when they're postdocs or they're researchers. There is a gender bias that we need to let go of or address. The carer responsibilities, the job insecurity is literally across the board for men and women, but particularly more so for women because it's just a lot of more pressure for them. And then the lack of representation and leadership. I had a very interesting conversation with a few of my fellow EMCRs, the early to mid-career researchers back at University of Melbourne. I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago. And we were all selected for attending a very intensive 5-day leadership workshop. And a lot of the female EMCRs, people like me from nursing, from medicine, from other faculty of health sort of backgrounds, they did say that there was a lack of leadership at the top tiers. And I'm sure, Ekta, that would be the case in the non-medical other fields as well. So we still have to work on that. Just going to share my example. When I started my PhD, I did my PhD at Deakin University. And when I started, I already had my youngest was 6 years old. It was very tough for me, and I got very lucky that I had really good supervisory team, and they understood my responsibilities, and I could sort of build up the sort of work environment where my first priority was my children, and I could give them time, the family, but I could also focus on my research. I think that really matters. We are talking about women and girls in STEM and research, women who are doing masters and PhD. Then we really need to focus on what sort of supervision they're receiving. I think it really matters if you have a sort of like a good model and a flexible pathway for that.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're already doing a lot of mentoring with young students or, year 11s and 12s, but also students in universities. And I think it'd be good to understand what you feel your impact has been, whether this is personal and professional. I think mentoring is part of that. That's a clear impact that you mentioned, transitions to that long-term positive impact, and also ties in with financial independence if girls and women can have fulfilling careers. But would love to know what you feel your impact has been.
Thanks, Anna. Ekta, if it's okay, because I'm just on the roller coaster ride, I might as well answer that question now.
Please
So,
continue. Yeah.
thank you. I'll make it short, guys. So, I feel like the impact in terms of the measurements, you look at the end results, right? And you can have two categories. You can have the personal level, personal impact, and the professional impact. For the professional impact, I do believe that the work that I've been doing has been, however small, it has been a part of the bigger picture where I'm striving to go for an equitable access to cancer screening because that's my expertise and I work in that, but also the equitable access to information for consumers and their carers for whatever health matters are at stake. But let's talk from my perspective, working within the cancer screening and primary practice. I do believe there's a huge need for an equitable access. I'm working towards that, and the impact, the professional impact has been that I think I've been striving to be a part of those teams where I have worked for research toolkits, which have been published from the hospitals, like I mentioned earlier, the research toolkit for palliative care integration, where my amazing professor and the team, I was part of that, and we helped shape it. And then recently that I mentioned, it's been a very intensive laborious sort of work, but then I'm really happy that we actually got published on the Magic App. So that's the digital platform for all the researchers around the world where your guidelines are published. But then we went a step further and we used a lot of EPIC and ERIC and ADAPT methodologies to fine tune the cancer pain management guidelines for Australian patients, which was a combination of the US guidelines and UK and ASCO and ESMO and European guidelines. So I'm very proud to tell you that when we talk about our Australian guidelines, let's say for the cancer pain management, or I was a part of the clinical guidelines or PCOS, they've always been very thorough. They look at all the other guidelines, and they're a mix of all of that, and they're really robust. And a lot of teams go into that to check and recheck and take out the risk of bias and everything. And we got published recently in the Asia Pacific Journal of Clinical Oncology. So I understand that there's this thing that's my passion for something that I'm really happy to work in. But you need to have a digital footprint and you need to have a voice. And when you can strive to go for that, that would be translated as a professional impact into either your books that you've contributed to, which are printed, published, and circulated amongst your peers and groups, or your peer-reviewed national and international publications, the research publications, which in itself is anyone who's working in research would know it's such a long process, the internal vetting and then the processes and then going for publications, the peer review process, the blind peer review process, because the more tiers you have, the better and more transparent your research is. So having those research publications, your books, your forums, your conference presentations, your abstracts, it's all a means for your voice to be heard, because you can talk about something that you're passionate about, but no one would take you seriously till you say, hey, I'm published. This is what I've done. So I think it's really important. And the personal impact that you asked earlier would be that I know, and I'm really happy about it, that it was sort of like an internal shifting of my compass that, yeah, it's important to supervise PhD students. It's great. It's a part of your, journey. But I really, really want to work with young people and young girls who are in high school and graduate work, just to shift their mindset that this can be done. So the personal impact would be maybe, hopefully, making a change in the prerogative of a young person, that they can go into research and make it happen. And the long-term impact, professional, personal, for me would be to have more collaborative work. I do believe in the power of participatory action research, evidence-based medicine, a lot of collaborations. They work, we're all human beings. We don't work like, we need to have those sort of relationship, professional relationships. So I love the fact that I can talk to different people from very different backgrounds and have them on board, listen to what they're telling me, and note that as advice and move forward. So that's always been the goal. Over to you, Ekta.
Thanks, Farwa, and I love your optimism. And firstly, congrats on getting published. It's always very special. So coming to the personal and professional impact, my impact on STEM spans multiple things, I guess. Research, as Farwa said, education, mentoring, advocacy, always with a strong focus on supporting women and underrepresented groups. So that's always my go-to place, that what is actually my impact has been. And as Farwa said, visibility is important always in our career. And I believe this has shaped as much, my impact has shaped as much by my personal journey as well as by my professional achievements like Farwa. So I totally echo that. So, as I mentioned earlier, I have experienced significant career breaks. They were related to migration to other countries or caregiving to my young children and personal loss of my mother. So, in my opinion, my journey reflects resilience. It reflects adaptability according to different countries, in fact, continents, different environments, different work cultures, different languages. So, which I openly share because I want others, especially women, to see that non-linear paths can still lead to meaningful success in your career, if it's STEM or not. So, from maths to AI, my journey is of determination always. I'm always a consistent worker. I always believe that you should work consistently, persistently, even if it works for you or doesn't work for you. You need to keep learning and you need to keep adapting. You need to keep moving forward. And I strive that in every single day in demonstrating that it's possible for women and young children through optimism, through persistence, and through lifelong learning. So, my impact also extends to early engagement and community outreach. I regularly mentor um, early career researchers and women, particularly at regional universities. I am a member of the Futures Outreach Program delivered by the Queensland Museum and Department of Education. So uh, I always promote maths through different channels like interviews, newsletters, community engagement, and as I said, it's not my job, but it's I have to secure competitive funding if I have to maintain the visibility of my work. And through funded postdoctoral work, fellowships, and all these competitive grants, I try to actively build the research capacity while creating the visible pathways for women in the technically demanding fields. And professionally, if I say I contribute to national priority projects, STEM projects in intelligence, in defense, in environmental domains, I supervise higher degree students. When I was working, I got to know that women just comprise around 19% of the Australian defense workforce. And according to the Deloitte's recent report, women are underrepresented in the Australian AI workforce as well. So they estimate place their participation at between 20 to 30%. So I aim to produce high impact research, the publications. They are not just helpful in advancing the knowledge, but also inspire more women to pursue applied STEM, particularly in the traditionally male dominated fields. So, beyond academia, as I mentioned, my initiative of co authoring books, which are a global platform, a creative platform for women's voices. I always say that rather than asking how to bring more women in STEM, we should ask how STEM can better serve girls' aspirations. And I've been working very hard since for a few years, and I say that quite humbly that my work has been recognized multiple times, most recently with the Acting Prime Minister's Award for Research Excellence. But I believe the greatest achievement is not those awards or publications, but you are proud of a life in STEM. Even if, the journey encourages one woman who has lost the hope that, how will it work, what to do, it really supports each one of us along the way. Yeah.
I
Over
think
to you, Anna. Yeah.
thank you. And I think it's a great question to be able to just, talking about my question about impact. I think it's nice to actually have a space where both of you can talk about what your impact is. I think we try and be humble, but it's great to actually hear such clear achievements, both professionally and personally. And, you spoke about resilience and, you both have mentioned things around giving inspiration or providing inspiration so that people can see this, or women and girls can see this as a future pathway for them, which just has such profound impacts. And we've spoken about role models a little bit earlier as well. I think that's part of it, when women and girls can just see that there are women doing well in this space and making impact and being heard. And I also love the idea of non-linear career pathways and not having to try and compete or put off personal decisions that people want to make because they don't want to have career gaps, making it just feel that there are choices that, you can have recognition for your experience over your whole career, not just the last 5 years or, whatever the traditional way to review a resume is. It's really looking more holistically and more broadly. So I think that all of those tie in really well, I think, with future opportunities. But do either of you have any additional comments in terms of your plans for the future, or what you're really looking forward to in the future for either career or professional, anything you're looking forward to?
Ekta, you go first.
Oh, thanks, Farwa. Yeah, Anna, it's a very important question. Perhaps in 5 or 10 years' time, hopefully continuing to work on something I love. I've worked in both academia and industry. And at this point, I foresee myself dedicating all the efforts I've done so far in advancing my AI expertise through the synergy of either industry experience or student mentoring or academic endeavors. And of course, I need to maintain a healthy work-life balance. So that's the ultimate goal. And more specifically, I want people to see AI more than just a technical tool. It can be designed to reflect empathy. It can be there can be an understanding of different perspectives. And I always say that women play a very important role in putting intelligence in artificial intelligence. So I'm very passionate about creating opportunities, expanding the opportunities for women in STEM. And I hopefully I can bridge the gender gap in my field. And we also, I think, need to support diversity and inclusion in the development of AI so that technology works for everyone, regardless of their race, regardless of gender or background. And with a human-centered approach, we can we can foster trust in AI, we can facilitate collaboration, we can help create meaningful progress in the society. So, in summary, I think I wish to remain committed to research, mentoring, and perhaps inclusive leadership so that future generations, my children, other people, everyone who sees STEM, they see STEM as a place where they truly belong. And I'm hopeful that with the interventions that are happening around us, with the government, support from the government, with fundings from universities, they will turn the tide on Australia's maths deficit. They can strengthen STEM education and women's participation across the discipline. Over to you, Farwa.
Thank you, Ekta. Very nicely said. So, I don't think if I can add something else, just accept my own personal prerogative for that, because clearly I love your passion too, by the way. So, I think so the plans that I think of could be the grand plans for me, and then this medium range plan, and then the small personal plans. The grand plans are something where I look forward to working in the next 5 to 10 years with more of the collaborative teams, bigger projects around the expertise that I'm developing for myself, for cancer screening, for more accessible and more equitable cancer screening for all Australians. That's the one goal. But that means that there'll have to be a multi-pronged approach that I'll have to employ, utilizing my built-in and existing and future networking and collaborations with the different players on the board, the organizations, the clinicians who really matter, the general practitioners, and of course, first and most important of all, the patients and the consumers. So I think that's something that I do look forward to, where at the moment I'm working on the breast cancer project, where I would like to have something solid in terms of a resource prototype, and I could then apply it to other CALD communities and then eventually to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as well. I've been a part of the Cancer Australia project for the pancreatic cancer pain and palliative care pathways, optimal care pathways. And I think everyone has a voice. It really matters. So my big goal is to keep on working in that sector, work on more projects, and mentor more of the young clinician researchers as much as possible in the official capacity and in the, as a passion project or something. The medium and the little personal goals that I have is, as I mentioned, I'm a sci-fi nerd, so I've started writing the book with my siblings. I want to keep continuing to do that, just to show everyone and my colleagues and my junior researchers and people that you can follow your heart as well, do what you are good at for your work, but don't lose your creative streak. I love writing those sci-fi. I'm a big fan of fictional sci-fi and dystopian worlds and all of that. And someday maybe I can share my book with you guys if I finish it. And then painting and then just traveling. I love traveling. I love meeting new people. I love traveling with my family or without them, because as we understand, the children are growing. So we become more independent. So it's just part of my personal future plans, just to enrich uh, my life with more experiences, really. So yeah.
Love that. And that's such a fun way to wrap up our conversation today around just, future goals for both professional and personal. But I love that idea of following your heart and doing what you're good at, but also not losing your creative streak, because I think sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that creativity when you're focusing so hard, especially in both of your fields that are quite technical and complicated and very heavy research requirements. But to have things you're doing on the side and just making an impact with mentoring and the new generation. And hopefully there is some improvements structurally and in universities and schools and other sectors, for example, making sure that you can get the funding you need to make impact. I think there's a lot that could be done to make improvements, but I think you're both doing such amazing work. So thank you both for your time. I'll hand back to Vinita to conclude our discussion, but really such a fantastic discussion. So thank you both.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Anna.
Anna.
Thanks, Anna.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you, Farwa and Ekta. That was such a fascinating conversation. As I predicted, it was going to be really interesting listening to your stories. And when I reflect on, what we've heard, there's such strong parallels between, the work that Anna and myself do, which is in the financial health and well-being space, and the work that you're doing in, the broader STEM-related health and well-being space. We've talked about the importance of action research, of knowledge, which actually leads to real-world outcomes. We've talked about the need for genuine partnerships with every level of the ecosystem that you're working towards. These are things that Anna and myself have faced and done throughout our careers. I love the focus that you have looking forward for encouraging and mentoring others. That's exactly what the Center for Financial Wellbeing has tried to do. And these conversations that we have are an opportunity to give voice to your ambitions, your aspirations, as well as, we hope, inspire others to follow your lead as well. So in wrapping up today, I know that, this is all about financial independence. I wish for you both that we can generate more funding for your really important research, which of course we all know without the funding, you can't actually have the impact that you want to have. So we wish you the very best, and thank you once again for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Vinita.
so much.
Thank you.
For being such good hosts, I would say. Anna, you asked really good questions, awesome questions actually, just to generate that passion. I could see that Ekta and I were mirroring that passion. I love that. So it's hats off to you for being such a good interviewer and host, and Vinita for, taking care of us during this talk. Just really, really nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Absolutely a pleasure. Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone.